One of our clients owns companies in 3 countries and lives in 2 of them. He's a smart guy. Every deal he did, it made sense at the time, but nobody ever sat down and asked him the boring questions. Where does the money land when you sell? Who pays the tax and how much? And what do your kids actually get after the government takes its share? He had a plan to expand and buy, but he had no plan to leave. And today we want to show you why designing the right structure before you leave is more important than you may realize.
And before you decide this is a video about a business owner, think again. If you are an executive rather than a founder, stay with us because you have the same problem, but wearing different hats.
Say a little bit more about that.
Well, the founder has companies in 3 countries. The executive has been working in 3 countries. Equity vesting under one system, a pension occurring under another, a family that has moved twice already. Different biography, yes, but identical structural exposure.
So the same blind spot, which is actually the subject of this video. And by the end, you will know what optionality really means and why it determines what happens to you when life moves faster than your paperwork. You'll see the 7 layers that have to work together, and you will have 5 questions at the end to run on your own situation.
What we will not do is tell you which country to move to or which program to buy into because that question comes last. Yet almost everybody starts there. It's always their first question to answer.
That's true. Okay, but let me go back to our client because his situation is actually not unusual. It's the norm. Every entity that he set up to acquire something. Open a market, hold a property, employ a team. Every one of those decisions was made looking forward with good advice, and every decision was correct on the day that it was made. There's no mistakes made. But yet, when a tax return becomes overly complicated or a purchase offer comes in, the structure that he built to grow and expand turns out to be a poor structure for tax purpose or for even selling the business.
Well, you see, that's the whole distinction. In an assembled life, every decision is an entry decision. You are always answering the question in front of you. How do I get into this market? How do I get this residency? How do I open this account? Nobody ever asked the exit question. How does this end? What happens when I want out or have to move or when I'm gone?
A designed life asks the exit question first. And that's genuinely the only difference. Same decisions, same advisors, same countries, asked in a different order. And there's a timing problem underneath. These decisions get made years apart typically. The company structure is made in 1 decade, the residency in the next, and the banking is usually somewhere in between. But there's not a point in time when you look at everything together holistically.
That's true, and nothing really forces the review. A company gets audited. A company has a board. Private life has neither. So nothing gets looked at until something breaks. And by then you're negotiating from a weak position. So let me put a word to what this client was missing because it's the word we built everything around. Optionality. People have been moving abroad for generations. That's not new. The question now is different. They have been moving, but do they have true optionality?
So define optionality precisely because that word often gets used loosely.
Optionality means you can change your residency or your citizenship position quickly, legally, when you need to. Not eventually, not in 3 years, quickly.
And need is doing a great deal of work in that sentence because the events that create the need are exactly the ones that you do not get to schedule.
So why don't you talk about the one we see the most?
Okay, so you have grown a company into something genuinely successful. And an offer to purchase your company arrives, awesome, but not when you were expecting. And you discover at the worst possible moment that you're sitting in the wrong jurisdiction. So a meaningful share of what you built is going to go up in the form of taxes. And the painful part is that this was fixable. It was fixable for years. It stopped being fixable about 90 days before the offer arrived.
Yes, and think about it. Structure takes time to change. That's the entire problem in one sentence. Now, let me give you one that has nothing to do with money because I think it lands harder. Imagine your husband is diagnosed with something rare, and the best doctor in the world for that condition is in Germany. The treatment protocol takes 10 months, and it has to happen there in Germany. 10 months. And on the passport most of our clients carry when they first meet us, you are only entitled to be in Germany for 90 days.
So now, in the worst week of your life, you can't even fully focus on your husband because you're trying to solve a residency problem from a standing start in a foreign language and on a clock. But it can be solved. Almost everything can be solved. But solving it under pressure costs more, takes longer, and sometimes the answer is simply still no. Optionality, it can prevent that. Not a country, not a program, but optionality gives you the ability to say yes to something you didn't even see coming.
So that brings the obvious question. Why is this important? Why would someone build this before they need it?
Well, I always answer that the same way. Why do you carry medical insurance? Why do you even carry life insurance? Well, you carry them so that you are covered when things go sideways. You don't expect to use them, at least not health insurance, because you would rather never use them. But you would not dream of going without it, right?
Yes, and nobody calls that pessimistic. It is just what responsible people do. Global optionality is exactly that. It is your concierge insurance. And most people never even learn it's available to them. So what we do at GCC is design the coverage, not a policy, a blueprint for you and your family so that when something happens, already have somewhere to stand.
So, what does coverage consist of? 7 layers that we're going to walk you through.
Got it. Start the count.
Okay, so 1, where you pay tax. Frequently, not where you assume, and almost never simply where you sleep. 2, your citizenship portfolio. Not how many you hold, but what each one does and what happens if any one of them changes. 3, your banking, where your money sits, who can restrict it, and whether you can still move during a bad week.
4, where your assets actually live. House, holdings, intellectual property. A different question from where you live. 5, where your companies are based and whether they still fit into your global structure. 6, your ability to move. Permits, entry right, stay requirements. This is the option that allows you to see a specialist in Germany, for example, and the one almost nobody thinks about. And 7, what your family inherits and whether it arrives intact or gets pulled apart by 4 legal systems that have never agreed on anything.
7 layers. And the number of people who have had one conversation covering all 7 at once is close to 0. Not because people don't have good intentions, but because nobody has even ever offered them the conversation. I want to give you an example. Think about an aging parent that has multiple doctors. The cardiologist is going to prescribe one prescription. The rheumatologist will prescribe something else. The endocrinologist is going to add a third. Every one of the doctors is excellent, right? Every prescription is correct for the condition that it was written for.
But each one written without the knowledge of each other.
Exactly. So now, let's say your mother, she's on 7 medications and no one has looked at all of them together to ask whether they are working for or against each other. She's followed every instruction. She went to the best doctors and she may have even gotten worse because no one took ownership of monitoring the interactions between the prescriptions.
And that's spot on. Somebody has to own the whole list.
Your cross-border life, it has no such person. Nobody's looking at the tax advice, the residency, the banking, the company structure, the estate plan, all 7 layers or prescriptions, and asking the question that matters. Are these working together or against each other?
Let me show you the prescription/layers fighting each other in practice. Let's look at the executive this time. She relocates from a new position. Good move, good reasons, but she never formally establishes taxis residency in the new country and never cleanly exits the old one.
Which, by the way, most people assume happens when you get on the airplane.
Well, it doesn't. Many countries look at day count. 183 days is the number people have heard of. Not always accurate, but plenty also look at where your home is, where your family is, where your economic center of gravity sits. You can move your body and leave your tax residency exactly where it was.
So, layer 1, where you pay tax, is unresolved. Now watch what that does to the other layers.
Well, let's start with her banking. She opens an account in a new country. The bank asks for a tax residency certificate she cannot produce, and her onboarding stalls. Her equity, vesting under assumptions about residency that are no longer true. And 2 tax authorities now have a plausible claim on the same income. What about the shocking one? Her estate documents, drafted under the old residency and then no longer apply to her life.
So you have 1 unresolved question and 3 problems downstream, and none of them announces itself as a tax residency problem. They arrive as a banking problem, a compensation problem, and an estate problem. So she goes to 3 different specialists, and each specialist solves the symptom in front of them, beautifully and usually expensively. Unwinding all of that is always more expensive than initially designing it. So at GCC, we open every engagement with 1 question. Before tax, before citizenship, before anything else, what does strategic freedom actually mean to you?
And some people find that question annoying at first.
They do, because they arrived with a specific question about a specific program. And here we are asking something that sounds philosophical. But you see, the answers, they're never really philosophical. One person may ask, I want to be able to reach my daughter within 12 hours, always. Someone else may say, I want one country's rules to not be able to stop my business. Someone else may even say, I want to step back in 6 years without that decision ever costing me a third of what I built.
So there you have it. 3 answers, 3 completely different designs. Same 7 layers, 3 different architectures. So if you skip that question, you are optimizing without a target. You will get somewhere very efficiently, but it might not be anywhere you want it to be.
So at the beginning, we promised 5 questions. Run them on yourself and be honest. 1, look at where you pay tax, where your money sits, which passports you hold. Are these 3 items structured so that they work together? 2, you open a company in another country, but now you owe tax in 2 places. Your bank at home starts asking questions that you may not be able to answer. And if something happens to you, your family doesn't just get a company, they also get a nice tax bill. Did anyone ever tell you any of that before you expanded? 3, pick the country your life leans on most. If that country changed any of its rules next year, immigration, taxes, healthcare, what actually stops working for you?
4, let's say 2 parts of your professional or personal life contradict each other. Whose job is it to notice? 5, has one person ever seen all 7 parts in a single conversation? Your tax, your residency and citizenship, your banking, or your assets live, your companies, your ability to move, what your family inherits, and how any of it actually works together?
Now, if you hesitated on 2 or more of those, you don't have a strategy yet. You have an assembly. But that's okay, because that's nearly where everyone starts. Now, our client that I mentioned earlier, the one with the companies in 3 countries, he's fine. We got there in time, and we asked him the boring questions. And the boring questions, they're only boring until the day they become the most important questions in your life.
So if you're ready to move your life from assembly to design, schedule your introductory conversation at globalcitizenconsult.com. 30 minutes, no agenda except clarity.
We hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you would love to see more, please subscribe. The link is below, and we'll see you next time.